Shalom Yasharala. Before we go into this lesson, we give all honor, all glory, and all praises be to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakakodash. We give double honors to the apostles and prophets and elders of James Camp, but on us great millstone for the bring forward the 100% truth that have been correctly edified under. Shalom to the elect, Tabernacle of David. I'm my brother Zaria coming through this lesson. This is a perfect example as to why women should not be preaching. Another perfect example as to why women shouldn't waste their time trying to preach, because many of you women, misunderstand what the scripture is really going into, misunderstand history or historical points, misunderstand biblical prophecies and biblical truth, and accuracy canonical to history, Bible, and even future events taking place. Because if you had, then you would know what you are saying is vaguely correct and at the same time incorrect. But we know it's because whoever would have taught you or whoever you would have learned from, this is why you are spewing out this information. However, had you ever questioned or considered to look into the information, to try to address this information, or to try to find answers, real truth, instead of being biased, or instead of, in other words, cleaving directly to whoever taught you at the end of the day? Have you ever questioned if they came up under the right tutelage, that they would be provided proper receipts and straight information, biblically and historically, proving what they are saying? Because I feel as though there's a misunderstanding in where you learn it from. And we know, according to scriptures, according to this truth, the way Esau Edom operates, he is not going to give you that name in a book just like that. In fact, he's not going to give you that name in a book which is part of history. You would have to literally look in it for yourself. So before you say anything, let's listen to the video.
Pastor lied if your pastor told you that the name of the Creator is Yahweh. I have your receipts right here. Right here, take a look.
She's so confident in what she's saying, whilst being wrong at the same time. Let's go ahead. Now we know his name cannot be Yahweh. But have you thought to consider that his name also isn't what you're saying? Because when you go even into previous information, previous events, going back into Proto-Canaan, Proto-Indo-European, Proto-Afro-Asiatic, Proto-Afro-Asiatic, you get to understand that there are letters, there were songs used as syllables, and the other letters that were used mainly for roots, normal wording, especially roots, names, and titles, which is mentioned and understood. And you are removing the aspect of the letter that was directly used for titles, for the letters that were used for syllables, which is kind of against the culture and the tradition of Israel. All right? So before we continue, let's go ahead. So you pull out a what?
I have your receipts right here. Right here, take a look.
The truth scripture, Ta Anaxalak, promoting the truth.
So this is the preface of the truth scriptures.
Notice what I said before. Do you really think Esau Edom is going to give you or us the name? They might do the research, they might post it up because it's research that they need to identify timelines and events and who and when. But at the end of the day, they're still going to try to hide it, which they have been doing a very good job of. This is why we came up to the forefront and decided to do what? Prophesy against it. So let's scripture before you continue. Before they continue, so like, prophesy against it. Let's get a precept in Ezekiel 35, which was given to do. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir, which resided Esau Edom, the dwelling place of Esau, or Esau Edom, and prophesy against it. And say unto it, Thus saith Yahweh power, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out mine hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate, which we have been preaching even today. This is what we have been saying to them. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am Yahweh, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred. Here's the point of it. They have had a perpetual hatred, and have shed the innocent blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, in the time of their calamity, and in the time that their iniquity had an end. So they have a perpetual hatred, and for one of the perks in us being able to come back to our power is via the name. Do you think that they would provide this information in a book form or a historical book form or a Bible for us to learn? The answer is fuck no, sis. So you are right concerning the name is not Yahweh, and you are wrong concerning the name is not Yahusha.
Our deep research confirms what is plain in the ancient Abari Hebrew language.
Wow.
There is no letters E, W, O, V, or J.
So now we know this is directly made up, because you can't say there's no letters. There's no letters, whether it be E, W, O, V, or J, when the precepts and the information that is provided with links by the scholars, by historical points, biblical prophecy, biblical points, historical points, ancient culture and traditions, not before it was tainted, not after it was tainted, but before it was tainted. And in fact, the only letter in this few that was labeled a consonant letter before the letter U was W. Okay.
In authentic Abari Hebrew.
So we know now that Esau had a lovely hand in the delusion of many of our people. You see that? I'm going to show the receipts. She showed hers, I'm going to show mine.
These distortions are proof that the Masoretic system was designed not to preserve but to misdirect pronunciation and strip power from the true name of Yahuwah.
Ah, boy. See?
Common corruptions of Yahuwah's name. Corrupted form. Yahweh. Source origin. 19th century.
So now that,
Scholarly.
which we know that, but now that you said that, now I can get a little deep. We don't have to finish watching the entire video, right? We don't have to do that, right? Because when they go into the information, Rabbi, which I spelled wrong, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehudi, that's all I said. Nothing else. Look at that. Nothing else. It looks like you mean Rabbi Eliezer ben Yehuda. All right, but there were two well-known historical figures. People often confuse that with name. Confuses with that name. So here's a quick clarification. Rabbi ben Yehuda, 1858 to 1922. It says not a rabbi, but a linguistic and Zionist known as the reviver of the Hebrews, transformation Hebrew from liturgical language into a modern spoken language, created new Hebrew words, and promoted Hebrew only education. Of course, modern Hebrew only education, because as it says up here, lived in Ottoman Palestine, later Israel. Let's keep going. There's more. We know and you know this already, but the screenshots, I messed it up, as you can see, because it goes on to the next one. But let's keep going. Bottom line, usually it has the receipts provided, but bottom line, come on, we know we grab the receipts regardless. I hope you know that, right? Ancient Hebrew had no written vowels of O, E, or U. What O, E, or U was never letters. Vowel markers were added over 1,000 years later. Modern Hebrew pronunciation reflects later traditions in original speaking. So you are saying that U's was there and the W's wasn't there, but then history is telling you and evidence is telling you, which we will grab, trust me, is telling you that U's and O's and E's were never there. So matter of fact, it tells you it was there for a particular reason, but it was never part of our consonant letters, which in other words formulates our actual language. Which is why I said, sis, your portion is very dire at the point in time. Which is why you should not be going into things like this to study and to inform. It is not for you to teach. The Bible say, I suffer not a woman to teach, not to usurp authority over the man. So if you are teaching on a platform which involves men already, by understanding that, you might be in some danger. And if your husband taught you this and he didn't tell you, hey, close your mouth, keep your tongue still, then you're still in more danger. Job chapter 39 and verse 17. This is the reason why, because what? Power had deprived her of wisdom, neither had he imparted to what? Her understanding. It is not for y'all, sisters. Sisters. Proverbs 31, sisters. Y'all have the true understanding, you know that. And as for the rest who might be new, who might be sincere, my advice to you is to pay attention, take some time and learn. Alright? Let's go into more historical evidence. We can move this now. We can move this now. This isn't necessary anymore. We know the outcome of this, right? It says, this is my information which I ask, which, as you can see, were there any W pronunciations in ancient Hebrew? 3000 BC, of course there was pronunciations. W existed as a true consonant letters in multiple types of true consonant letters. It was pronounced with the English W as in W, or in other words, in the whole before the translation to W, it was wa, as mentioned, wa into wow, then into a and va, for those who don't know. But we'll show it. The period 3000 BC pronunciation. I think I have a screenshot, hopefully. Yes, I do. 2000 BC. We have 1500 BC, Biblical Hebrew, Proto-Semitic. After 300 BC AD, W was changed to V, and many traditions, right? And modern Hebrew is V, of course. When I go into this now, you see on the side, I believe it's supposed to be, yeah, it's a lock. It's supposed to, boy, oh boy, my hand. Okay, right, from here to here, right. So bottom line, yes, W existed in 2000 BC. It is original to the Hebrew ancestors. Was spoken wow, see, not va or vow. So we know it's not U, no. We know it's not V too, right? Let's keep going. The V sound is later, okay? Comes in later, about 1,000 years, as mentioned, right? After, right? So now we go on to this, and I had to build up for a reason, so it's gonna be a long lesson, as you know. Were there any W pronunciations 6000 BC? Yes, there were W pronunciations around 6000 BC, but it depends on which language stage you mean. Yes, a W sound exists by 6000 BC in Proto-Semitic, which is Proto-Semitic goes back to Shem-Metic, which are Shemites, which the Israelites were under, literally. So the language that they speak would have passed down into the Israelites today, having the same ancient Hebrew language, which again pronounced, shows that the same W would have been a consonant letter in that time as well. No problem. That W, which again we pronounce it to wa, which is changed to wow. Longer explanation: Proto-Semitic in 4500 BC to 3000 BCE. Proto-Semitic definitely had a sound W. It was a vocal. It was a voiced labial, velar, approximant, like the English W in water. We read that. Then reconstructed consonant W, which we can continue if it permits. It functioned as a consonant, and then as a root letter, and then as a semi-vowel. All right. Example: reconstructed W to give birth. No, WLD to give birth. Hebrew would be yalad after song change. After song change. Right. So same thing. Summary time period. In 6000 BC, was there a sound W? Yes. Proto-Semitic 4500 BCE? Yes. Ancient Hebrew early? Yes. Let's continue. All right. And then we can. I think there's more. No, I think I'll screenshot this bad. Yeah, so I'll go into it in and out. So you have the symbol, which gives the wow, right, which is normally be next in the square text in the Aramaic Hebrew, which I could show right now. Right, I'll go back into this now, right here, right? So we'll go back into this now. In the square text, we have that little line that you see here in the square text in this formation. This is what it represents, which is wa again. And we know this because of doing your research, not just talking out without research. Short answer: yes, probably yes. A W like sound exists sound exists around 9000 BCE, but we cannot prove it with certainty because what? The time frame 9000 BC. Why the answer is probable, that's not absolute. 9000 BCE is pre-writing. Writing appears much later in 2300 BC. Anything earlier than that is reconstructed using comparative linguistic, not direct evidence. But we know the language was passed down through our people, from where Adam comes straight down to Israel, as we know. With what linguistic tells us Proto-Afro-Asiatic, likely 10,000 BCE. To 8000 BC. Most linguistic place Proto-Afro-Asiatic in this range, right? Continue. This reconstructed language almost certainly had W, all right? So let's go before it was reconstructed now, because you see 9000 BC, very likely yes for those that had the W. 6000 BC, yes. Proto-Semitic, yes. Ancient Hebrew, yes. Bottom line, yes, humans almost certainly pronounced the W sounds by 9000 BC, even though we cannot hear recordings or see writings from that time, of course. Right? So, nice. So, we did miss a point here. It's 3. Yeah, you miss a point here. Proto-language, I guess, again, me and screenshots sometimes. Proto-language reconstruction, right? Many early languages, families reconstruct a W sound, see, very deep into the Proto-Asiatic, into the Proto-Indo-European, and to the Proto-Semitic. It was reconstructed, and here how it was reconstructed later, 4000 BCE. Wow, right? No problem. We have to remember one thing. All right, as you go down, it says Proto-Semitic on next two. Hold on. Where was next two? Anyways, right. Proto-Semitic is reconstructed with I consonant include with I, A, and U vowels, which again, as we mentioned, came about, I think it's 1,000 years after, and that is during 3000 BC, after ancient Hebrew with the language, ancient Israelites with the language, after, as we read before. So the consonant includes W, because before it was W, as we can show, before reconstruction, because of the writing itself, it was this symbol up here. We're not the one below. When you go high up, ancient Hebrew alphabet, next to za with the Z, there's a Y that pronounced wa. That's the reconstruction. From that into Aramaic, and from that into English, which is W. Okay? I hope you understand that. Let's go back into it. I hope I press the right one. Going back into it. No, I didn't press the right one. So like, yeah, bear with me. I'll find it. Yeah, I have to find it. Right. Right, this is right. Right. It says and I have the information here. Standard sources. You can go into the comparative grammar of the Semitic language. You can go into the introduction to Semitic languages, and this means U existed in speech, W existed in speech also. But there's a difference. For those who didn't do the research, here's the difference. And I want to say it now before you continue. The difference is that the W's were more used for roots, for titles, for names, more dealing with also religious beliefs or religious understandings, which deals with Israel and their customs and their ways. Next one was just a simple syllable that was not used as much, it was used less. In fact, what was more used was the W. It tells you that, and we will provide that information just now. It tells you this, right? It shows you, which is why when we're going to show it, I'm going to make sure I provide a precept. This is why we have to, as I said before, study instead of taking words at face value from people. It's also good to look into certain things. This is why Scripture says, 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 15, to yourself approve. Of power, unto power, a workman need not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Because when you do your due diligent research, you then begin to realize that, what this person is saying about this Yahuwah and Yahusha may not be actually accurate. Let me dig a little bit deeper, which is what I did. And when you dig deep enough and you realize it's not Yahweh, okay, no, that had a cutoff. The E, nah, Kabi. And the consonant letters is not in there. It's only Yah, Y-A, it's the only consonant letter in there. So no. And you see Yahusha, nah, that's something wrong there. If the U's were if the W's were primarily used and directly used for names and other things, and the U's was used for syllables, why was the W's primarily used? Because the Heavenly Father, which gave his name to them, would have sounded the exact same consonant letter which we saw, the Y figure, which pronounced as W-A, which is Wa. Right? So that's why people would want to have this more into their names, right? Okay, I hope you understand where I'm coming from too. Let's keep going. We're done. Right. No, we know the wrong did now. We just bypass that information already. Alright, both. I want to get the information directly. Right, there it is. And we go into it. Ancestral languages and W versus A. This is not what I asked for, I guess. My screenshot's a little off, as you can see. Just all over the place. 4, 2, 1, with 3. Which I've screenshot that twice with 3. I think, anyways, whatever. We'll get with wow. Alright. We done in 2 already. Let's go into 2. Let's take into 2, right? So 2. In ancestral language and W versus A, is the Proto-Semitic Hebrew ancestors. Reconstructions shows Proto-Semitic had both W and U. The consonant, which is W, which goes back to W-A-W, which traces back to W-A, which is wa, is very prominent in roots, especially at the beginning of words or in verbs formed. Right? The vowel U was present but limited in 2 syllables, which is vowels were not written. So you see, vowels were not what? Written. So it is fair to say W was a prominent consonant in Proto-Semitic used in roots, names, etc. Like we said, correct? Nice. So as you continue with that, and it shows the next side, right? So it's, again, we've seen it here. There's no removing of that. But however, in the Proto-Indo-European ancestors, pi had U as a core vowel. That is where it comes, that is where it stems from. It's a core vowel to the Indo-Europeans. W existed as a glide, but was yet less prominent as a consonant. Often it was a semi-vowel or a part of the diphthongs. Pi reconstructions shows that the vowel U in many roots, but the consonant W only in certain environment, which means that the consonant, that U was the vowel or their version of consonant for the Indo-European ancestors or people, which, by the way, is not of the ancestors of Shemitic, whereas the Proto-Semitic, as mentioned, their consonant letters or mainly used lettered for names or titles or roots or other things concerning Israel would have been W. That's their main consonant in the both of them. One was the least. One was the most. W was the most prominent in Proto-Semitic, which traces back down to Israel, and the Indo-European U was more prominent, which means that W was consistent and was used directly for from our ancestors concerning titles and names, etc. So it would be foolish to put an Indo-European spin on the God of Shem or the power of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, seeing that he is therefore Shem or the lineage of Shem. In other words, the seed which the covenant was formed by his descendants to Israel. So by that understanding alone, it would remove the aspect now of those using Yahoo, the U, because who is not a consonant letter, by the way. HU is not a consonant letter. And if the words are formed via the consonant letter, making up the sound, and given the definition or the description of the person, then you would have to follow that correctly. In other words, Ya, Ha, Wa is the pronunciation provided, which is very hard to dig into when you do. And when you do, you see many blocks and informations being removed and suppressed. Why is that? Which I'm glad many of our people get that notion and decide to bring it out like we do. That way people can have more understanding of what the name really goes into, which is why it's not even widespread still. People still doesn't know. People more know Yahoo than Yahweh. That's the reality. Anyways, Source, again, Introduction to Semitic Languages, and Harvard. There's more, right? See the use, again, U as a core vowel for the Proto-Indo-European. Indo-European, with the receipts being right there. Fourth son, Indo-European Language and Culture 2010 is Mallory and Adam X Oxford, Introduction to Proto-Indo-European Languages. These things were there before. Information is just being provided now about it. What this means is that the letter U again, what this means, this is literally as it says. What this means, according to me phrasing, which I said before, the different, the ancestral language, if it was W or if it was U, what this means, according to your phrasing, what this means according to your phrasing, the letter W is original to the Hebrew ancestors, and the U's was original to the Indo-European ancestors. And it says, if by letters you mean sound, yes, it is mostly accurate to say W was more central to Proto-Semitic roots than to Pi roots. It is also accurate to say U is more central to Pi roots than to Proto-Semitic roots. This is about phonological prominence, not invention. This U to the Hebrew, the ancient Hebrew, is an invention. Why? This is very important. This is very important. How can I not get this? 4 was very, wow, I feel. Tell me it here. Tell me it here still. No, it's not here. Of course it's not here. The time I need it, it's not here. I'll continue lesson. Let me cut it short. Until the next one, part 2. Alright?